Cowboys lose to the Chargers 26-19. Trey Lance 33 of 49 for 323, 6.6 a pass, 1 touchdown, 5 interceptions. And RJ, how did you phrase it last night? How did you
it could have been a dazzling disappointment or an amazing atrocity or a terrific tragedy.
Okay.
You know, that's
I like
how
those.
That's how I think that you got to use what's that called where you use 2 words to describe something? I'm sure
English.
English.
Oh.
Not an alliteration.
No,
Maybe
I know what you're talking about, but the same word begins with the same, or the 2 words begin with the same letter.
Yeah, but they have completely opposite meanings because that's exactly what this was. Because you could come away from this game without thinking, to me at least, like, okay, there's some throws and there's some plays that you absolutely can understand why he'll get chances. And there are other plays that are like, holy cow, I know how Kyle Shanahan wanted to get rid of this guy so fast.
I don't know. I've never seen somebody with the tunnel vision that he shows. Like, I've never seen a quarterback. Quarterbacks all have tunnel vision to an extent. Dak has had it for years. Dak does not always see, when he gets locked in, does not always see defenders just sitting in a zone, like in the periphery. He doesn't always catch them, and that's when you get those interceptions where when they're moving across the field and he throws it and, oh my gosh, somebody just stepped in front of it. This is 2 of these, the guy was between him and the receiver, and he just doesn't see it. I've never seen it before where he is that locked in and that zeroed in that he cannot see anything in the periphery or anything directly in front of him. If there's somebody between him and his target, he doesn't see it.
Well, I mean, look, he's 5'10". No, he's not.
No, he's not.
Like 6'5", right? So, yeah, I can understand that if he's Drew Brees or like Baker, Kyler Murray, but not when you're a monster.
And this isn't unique. Like, Sean, how many times did we see him do this at practice? Where like there were like 3 of the interceptions we saw at practice were just, dude, there's somebody right in front of your face and you threw it to him.
His highlight throws were much better, and I still stand by this. It didn't change anything as soon as I tweeted it that he threw a pick, of course, or 4 of them. But his best throws were much more impressive than his best throws the week before. I thought the week before, you're going to have a better stat line, easier throws, wide open guys. If I'm looking for NFL-type difficulty, more of those throws were in this game. He had a 3rd and 7 dime to Billy Johnson for 25. I thought he was really impressive standing in against pressure multiple times. You could see him trying to go through progressions, and it's pretty obvious with his head just whipping around that he's trying to go 1st, 2nd, 3rd. His best throw of the day was actually dropped, and that was down the right sideline when that ball should have been brought in for a touchdown. That was a dime.
That's the best throw anybody's made in any of the preseason games this year. Between him and Rush, that was the best throw you'd seen, and Burnett just couldn't finish it. Now it's a contested catch. Somebody's right on him, but you got to finish that. When he dropped it in a bucket 40 yards down the field.
He had a dime to Flournoy before the half. That eventually made it 17-10, and then you get all the bad things. So I put out a poll question. I just wanted to see who was that dug in, and if Brian Broaddus was voting on who the backup quarterback should be to start off the year, and the Tolos, not that stubborn. They were going 77% for Cooper Rush, 23% for Trey Lance with 2,100 votes. So that settles that.
Yeah.
Did Brian Broaddus apologize to you after what happened last week and after coming on this show, after speaking to his gang of 7 and saying that he would have Trey Lance as the number 2 quarterback this choppy 30 seconds of the Broaddus-Bobby fight last week?
But I just get a feeling you're really digging in on this one.
No, it's that.
I mean, it's just you're kind of like, well, I don't, I've said this really hard opinion about he's not an NFL quarterback, and you're kind of fighting it now. You don't feel like he's gotten better in any way?
No, not particularly.
Okay.
Like not particularly.
Like, you got another question? I mean, I don't want to argue with you anymore about this. I really don't.
Which I wouldn't let it get to a fight. He wanted it to get to one, but I wouldn't let it. But he apologized.
That's growth.
I really Dawson was less restrained fighting with him about it later in the week. But no, he apologized about 5 times probably
in the post game
during the game. Sitting right next to him, apologized about 5 times, one for each interception, to look over and go when he'd say something like, maybe I'm the one who's dug in, or yeah, that was bad. This is not making me look good today.
Yeah.
But I didn't take a victory lap in the post game show. Could have, but I did not.
He got tricked by Trey's legs. And what Broaddus was saying last week, I was asking different evaluators who would be more difficult or who would you be more afraid of preparing for. And, yeah, it's easy to say, a guy who runs for 70 yards, but I take it to who is the bigger threat dropping back 25 times to pass. The answer to that is and was Cooper Rush. The last 2 weeks did not change that, so therefore that is the answer. So that's why his gang of 7, maybe they're all unemployed like Brian. I don't know.
Not all of them. I know all of them. Not all of them are. It's interesting the way that it's become
Where's the bell?
I know, I looked for it. It's interesting the way it's become
broke this bell. It's not having the lasting staying power. Like it's low. It's like when you mess up a pen, the top part. If someone messed this up.
BlueChew.com, promo code RJ if you need it to last longer. It's one of those where I saw Chris
Hold
Sims.
Up. We have a developing situation on the D&M leasing hotline.
I know what this is.
Brian Broaddus
already
is live on Shan and RJ. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, guys. I really appreciate the fact you're talking behind my back today, but that's okay.
Well, do you have anything to say? You're the one who has to own it and take it. What are you coming on here attacking us for?
Trey. No, I'm not attacking you guys. No, Trey Lance is not ready to play. Now, Sean, you just admitted that he made some better throws.
Yes.
That's all that I was looking for myself. You put up your poll, Sean, on that thing. I voted for Cooper Rush. I voted for Cooper Rush in your poll. Just to say, okay, this is the right thing. I just don't think that you could say that Trey Lance didn't get better this summer. At least we saw what Trey Lance was. Unlike Ezekiel Elliott, they hid him from us on that. But I'm just saying, I don't know how you can watch 3 preseason games and don't feel like he got better. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The throws that he makes that are bad throws, the ones with the interceptions where he doesn't see, that's a problem. You got to be able, as a quarterback, you got to be able to know that if you're not going to throw the slant and you're going to try and throw the corner, that there could be a safety sitting right there or a linebacker sitting right there. The 25-yard throw he made to Billy Johnson, that was the harder of the 2 guys that were open.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a Cropper running a deep end, and that's going to be a simpler throw. And he made the harder of the throws. That kind of proves to the point that he doesn't really see the field all that well.
So what do you do now as an evaluator? You're like, all right, we got something we can work with. He's going to make the 53, and we just develop him throughout the years. Is that the mindset?
I think the thing about it is that at least you have a better idea. If you want to extend him at the end of the year because you've lost Dak, that might be your bridge. Who do you think? Now, Cooper Rush might be better, too, just for the fact that Cooper Rush's attitude this summer was like, hell, I'm either going to be the 2 or the 3. So his willingness to throw the ball down the field was much better. His willingness to take some shots was better. But, the situation could be really tough because you could have a new head coach. You could lose your starting quarterback. Does the new head coach want to have Trey Lance as his quarterback? I mean, there's all kinds of possibilities that you got to work through, but I think that at least he's put himself in position for consideration if, in fact, you lose Dak Prescott in 2025.
Brian, wouldn't you say, though, we learned more good things about him, right? Like, I think you're absolutely right about that. We also probably learned more bad things about him than we knew. So
that's true.
Cumulatively, don't we look at that and say, what we learned is he's kind of who we thought he was, which is a wildly inconsistent quarterback. And ultimately, we didn't learn much because of that.
Yeah, I don't know if San Francisco even learned. I think San Francisco, in talking to their guys, I think San Francisco was willing to, they liked the player. They liked the kid. They just could never get him healthy. Every time they felt like and then all of a sudden, Brock Purdy comes along and they're like, all right, well, we're getting more consistency here. We're getting health and all that. I think San Francisco probably gave up on him. I don't know. Maybe they didn't know exactly what they had. But, yeah, this is the first time that we've seen Trey Lance. I mean, us personally, every day live, you saw practices and stuff. There are things that he's really, really good at. Mm-hmm. His mechanics could be way off. And like he throws a ball to the flat to Deuce. Deuce is a hard guy to hit because he's a shorter guy. But if he's got this really long throwing motion. He sits on his back foot, and and then now the ball goes high on him. There's just his mechanics kind of come and go as the game goes on. The last pass he threw of the game, the ball flies completely out of his hand. You watch the play on tape, there's no control over it. So you wonder, okay, does he have a grip problem? There's all kinds of things that you can kind of dive in on this guy. Are they correctable things? Yeah. I don't know if seeing the field's correctable, though. I really don't know if that's correctable. But, I think that the guy got better. But is he your backup quarterback this year? No, he's not.
So,
he's not your backup quarterback. Yeah,
if Dak needs a game or two, gets a little banged up, you go to Cooper Rush. But it's a situation where if it's the entire year, then you just throw Trey out there. Is that how you would approach it? That's why you keep them both?
We had this discussion on our show. If you're 7-1, you play Cooper Rush is what you do. If you're 2-5, you're probably playing Trey Lance. The Raider game showed you how you're going to have to win a game with Trey Lance. That showed you how you're going to have to do it. Him throwing the ball 40-something times is not going to be a good thing, but he was forced to throw it 40-something times because they got behind in the game. Well, because of some of his doing. Wow. So there's ways to navigate a game with Trey Lance playing quarterback that you can find a way to win.
Why are you up and driving right now?
Going to work out.
Yeah, buddy.
What a beast.
Get it, Brian.
Now, Bobby. This is how you admit something. If you feel like you're a little off, take notes, take lessons. This is from the old sage veteran saying, I voted in the poll. I'm calling it 620. This is how you do it when you may have not been 1,000% accurate with your opinion. Notice it?
I'm making a note for it. I'm making a note for the first time I'm wrong.
I was 1,000% right. Don't get me wrong, Sonny. Don't get this all twisted. I love you guys. I felt obligated at 6:40 in the morning to come on with you guys because I did it for 2 weeks. Well, you know what I'm saying?
You're the man for it. Stand up, move. Right, thank you. And check your email while you're working out. It'll make your workout. You'll burn some more calories when you check what I sent you. Thank you.
I got you, man. Take care, boys.
Look at that. What a classy move. The great Brian Broaddus. He tried to come in aggressive. I had to shut it down quick. Yeah. I knew he was talking about behind my back. No. Yeah, no. You got to take the L. But not many people would call in and take that. And he offered to apologize to you or own it on the post game show. And you said no. You're going to take the high road. So there's Double B, one of them, on the D&M Leasing Hotline.
Now, I certainly understand why you thought I might play one of the 5 interceptions, one of the 2 fumbles. There's time for that. Don't worry. But what I wanted to ask you guys right here and right now, we'll get more into depth on Trey Lance later.
All right.
Who were you watching in the Cowboys preseason finale or listening to? And who do you think is up their stock most during training camp? You can also give us the other side of it because clearly there's some people who faltered over the weekend as well.
I guess 2 people that made my team, and I wasn't quite. I mean, I felt like he was going to make it, but I wasn't quite sure. Flournoy is a legit NFL receiver. Like this, he's going to be a receiver that next year you're going to go, can he be the 3rd receiver on this team? It's kind of. I gotta look at the run sheet real quick. it's kind of interesting, too, because I'm not quite certain how Deron Bland's injury affects everything. Yeah. What if they were like, okay, we're ready to move on from this guy, and then that injury changed everything for them, and they were like, okay, we really have to watch these cornerbacks this week. And quite honestly, I'm just looking at Andrew Booth on the touchdown run. We also saw Fehoko get lost, right?
Yeah.
But Andrew Booth was downfield 40 yards, pushed out of bounds. And I'm trying to figure out exactly how that's supposed to line up for us. So
I wonder if they would go ahead and carry both Booth and Scott as that, I guess, de facto replacement. Like, I know Carson will get plenty of the time straight away, but I wonder if that's the way they would look at it. And they're like, hey, let's just go a little one more deep on this position as opposed since we lost a key player.
Yeah, and you know, I was asking, at least, and we were having a conversation with Kyle about it last week before you created the amazing book, The Triplets, about his triplets and the Cowboys triplets, about Mukwamu and where he stands on all of this. So the whole Deron Bland injury changed a lot, and they were relatively healthy. Aside from Sam Williams, you were feeling pretty good about the health of the team. But when that happens, that shifts all these little pieces around. So can you keep a Buddy Johnson? Can you keep the amount of defensive linemen that you want and also keep this whole thing together? So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they do this week, because knowing what this team is and knowing what can be on the practice squad awaiting you as you go along is really going to be nice.
I'm really glad that you brought up Mukwamu because he is very intriguing to me. So I want to ask a question about two other players, and then we'll circle back to Mukwamu. Do you think that Deuce Vaughn and Ryan Flournoy are good to go? Like, maybe you already thought they were good to go, but did this hammer home? They're good to go. They're on the roster.
Oh, I think, Flournoy's made it. He's on my roster.
Okay.
He's a legitimate wide receiver who, again, I think is going to be with you next year. He's going to be, I think he's your fourth receiver.
Okay.
I don't really know what Turpin is. I'm sorry. I don't know if he's if I'm using him as anything other than a return specialist.
Okay.
I just don't know if I can trust him as a receiver. For me, he's not a burner downfield. A lot of stuff underneath that he can turn into big plays. So I don't know exactly where that lands. But Flournoy's on. Deuce Vaughn, it's always been this for me. I can't have three of the exact same running back.
Yeah.
I can have two. And maybe even the second one that's kind of the same as the first one becomes my third running back, and my other guy's a switch up. But yeah, Deuce Vaughn, they've been looking for a way to keep him on the team. I mean, even last week, Kyle was telling us they had him in punt return and stuff, and it wasn't quite working, but they want him to be on this team just as much as anybody else. And he's got the shiftiness and the power to do it. It's more about that Trey Lance pass that went over his arms.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, that is Trey Lance typically throwing to most guys about that size over there, and it working out. It was a bad pass, but if Deuce Vaughn was a little bit longer, then maybe he would have had that.
This is a fair question from the 940. Hey, Corey, can you give me a roster spot? I don't turn 72 for 3 more months. That's from Ed Denton.
Thanks, Ed. Yeah. Get on this roster. Let's go, man.
All right, who are you getting rid of? Lipke?
See, 72? You know what? We could just go ahead and run with 2 quarterbacks, and we'll go with Cooper Rush and Dak, and we're good to go.
Okay. I understand.
If we're getting Ed on this roster.
I understand that's what logic would dictate, but Jerry Jones has made it a point. If you know no other person that will be on this roster, you know that Trey Lance is on this roster.
I want to. Somebody, Kill Switch asked on the Twitch. He said, "How Deuce Vaughn's a speedster? How is he the same as the other?" I was saying Royce Freeman is kind of the same as Dowdle and Zeke.
Yeah,
they're big bully type running backs. Deuce Vaughn is the one guy that can really blow you out of the water.
So if Flournoy and Vaughn we think are going to be on the roster, does that naturally bump Cropper and Freeman off the roster? Are those like the spots they're essentially taking?
Yeah, I think so.
All right.
And somebody said, are we sure that Jalen Brooks is better than Flournoy? I'm not right now. As a matter of fact, I feel like I have Flournoy higher up on this thing right now.
But you think both? I think both will make the initial 53.
Yeah.
I mean, and as Broaddus has told us many, many times, as we've talked about throughout last week, this is the start, right? Like, what you said is the 53 will not necessarily, or maybe even be several players close to being what your actual roster looks like going forward.
Yeah.
All right.
Trey Lance could be the starter by the end of the season.
I am not saying that, but
I'm not saying it is going to happen. I'm saying it could happen.
Okay.
That's a possibility. We never know.
I guess in the land of anything is possible.
Dak just gets upset and he's like, you know what, Jerry? I'm not playing for the rest of the year.
Then wouldn't Cooper Rush be your quarterback?
Well, I'm not trying to wish injury. I'm just saying there's lots of scenarios that could play out, Kevin.
All right.
You know all the scenarios. You're just not admitting them right now. Somebody said
fair.
from the 972, that's dumb. Lance didn't show me anything that justifies that.
I hear you. I promise that is the genesis of our segment later in the program. I'm not arguing against that whatsoever. I'm just telling you, Jerry has said numerous times that he'll be on the roster. I would be stunned if he wasn't. He'll be on the roster. Your guy Hall, he's off then too, right?
Come on, Hall.
He's not going to make it now, right?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I just think that, there is a log jam there of backup cornerbacks. And as well as he played, I think the Swiss Army knife of Mukwamu is the better option because you can play him in different areas. But I do wonder, when does he start focusing on one so that it benefits him in his career a little more? It's great because he can play other places. It keeps you around. It gives you more options, more opportunities. But I want him to be good at it too. Like Ben Stein. Win Ben Stein's money.
Yes.
I don't know if he's super smart at any one thing, but he knows so much. And that's what I look at with Mukwamu. Is he good at this position or is he just good at being around with those things? So, yeah, I think Hall's gone.
Do you get the sense as well then that they're only going to go 3 tight ends with the most likely configuration being Ferguson, Schoonmaker, and now John Stevens? Look,
You mean the fumble machine?
Whoa.
Look, man, all these bad things, these bad interceptions Trey Lance threw, that fumble really could come. But yes.
No, would you put Span forward in there?
No, I think Stevens.
Okay.
And I've heard this continually said. The only way that Span forward, the reason being, is because of the amount of money they signed him for. Other than that, he didn't show enough to say that he belongs on the team.
Okay.
And hold on, you said Ferguson, Schoonmaker,
and Stevens.
Hendershot's gone.
I think it's more likely that Brevin Span-Ford makes the team than Hendershot.
And see, that's the thing too. Is Mickey last week was like, hey, he's coming on strong late here in camp, and I wonder if that's something that he was finally getting healthy and could do it, and they were kind of holding away from him, or even if there's something else going on there.
It's tough. Look, if you're using these preseason games as a gauge, they targeted him one time.
Yeah.
And he caught the ball for 10 yards. And
Dak didn't play any games, so what's that tell you?
Okay, well, I'm assuming you're not comparing the
Zeke didn't play any games.
Roster stability of Zeke and Dak to Peyton Hendershot.
Hendershot's, one of those guys.
Okay.
Probably not, though.
Yeah,
most likely that's not the situation.
Probably not. No, from the 817, Adam in Arlington, you have heard that incorrectly. So what I'm hearing is you're guaranteeing Lance will be our starter this year. No, you have heard that
wasn't from me.
incorrectly.
It might have been from Kevin that said that.
No, it's not from Kevin. And for the 972, Lance should make the roster. He's the best running back on the team.
That's a fact.
I would love to see this.
Him be Taysom Hill?
I would love to see him be your tailback. And then you just pitch the ball back to Trey Lance, and you're like, I'm pretty sure he's going to run. But I guess he could throw. But then again, you might think Trey Lance throwing the football is no different than if Deuce Vaughn threw the football at this point based on some of these percentages.
Yeah. And yeah, we did know that Hall got hurt pregame, but I think even that was not enough. There wasn't enough that was going to keep him around.
Look, that might be where you can use some injury designations. And like I said, there's a lot of fancy stuff.
The 817, Kevin said Trey Lance is going to be the starter?
No.
Alec, what did you hear?
Kevin.
You did not hear that.
Kevin. I heard it.
Oh, wow. This is amazing.
What? We still got time to cancel that announcement.
What? No, we don't.
I don't care if we did say it over the weekend. Everything's
fine, Alec. Your announcement will be made.
Let's go.
Whether or not it has any legitimacy behind it, though, who knows?
You picked the correct side.
Who knows?
The
All right.
ink is dry.
We'll have to pick this up another time. But the other thing I really wanted to dive into, because you were talking about Flournoy, I wanted to talk about which players have upped their stock most throughout training camp. So we will pick up that conversation at another point. And no, I'm not saying that Trey Lance is going to be the starter.
214, why does Kevin want Lance to be our starter over Dak?
Who would want that? Well, maybe the Jones family, because they're like, he's super cheap.
So that's improvement.
Who, based on football reasons, would want that to be the case? Shout out to Michael Long, Tejano Boy, Bubba, some of the folks in the YouTube chat right now. And I'm not going to read this text for about 30 seconds.
817, why does Kevin think that Trey Lance is going to be the starter? Are they trading Dak right now?
No, I am reporting nothing of the sort.
817, so Lance is the Pro Bowl starter this year is what Kevin's saying.
You know what?
We better get out of this segment now.
We should.
Well, just as it was about to get super weird, I feel like the Cowboys and CeeDee Lamb come to terms just as the rant volume was increasing and we were talking about what happens when CeeDee actually miss a game. Boom, there it is. Adam Schefter with the report a couple hours ago, hour and a half ago. 4 years, $136 million. Makes him the second highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Congratulations are in order for him. It includes a $100 guaranteed, $38 million signing bonus, the largest ever given to a wide receiver, the largest signing bonus ever for a wide receiver, second guaranteed money behind Justin Jefferson. I just think it's fair, I don't know, like the Cowboys are having so many of these go long. I think the players understand that's just what we have to do to ultimately get our number. And for me, the bigger thing is I just think the Cowboys kind of have this process for doing contracts that requires as little effort as possible. I don't think it's necessary. There's not a huge downside to it, but they're not getting any great benefit from it.
Yeah, they're really not. I mean, well, the benefit might be let's see what the cap number is and stuff like that. And I hate these things because I never understand fully what the numbers mean and all that. But let's see how Adam Pacific and those guys structured this thing. That to me, I was kind of hearing when I was out in Oxnard that the number they kind of agreed on, it was the structure that was a little bit of the problem with that. And, so that's why I felt like that, okay, this is probably going to get done. I felt like that CeeDee was not going to miss game checks. That was number one. He wasn't going to leave even he is under contract, or he was under contract. This is just an extension. But his contract before this extension called for $1 million a game. And I didn't think he was going to miss that.
Well, Jane Slater has some details in regards to how this thing got done here. And she says that the two sides were off and on in recent weeks, but it started really getting going over the weekend on Saturday.
There you go.
So she says that for a long time, the Cowboys were at $32.5 million per year, then moved it up to 33. But Lamb and his camp have been at $34 million forever. Of course, in the end, it came in at $34 million. So Lamb ends up getting exactly what he wanted, according to the Jane Slater report. Now they're working on getting a physical done, typing up language, and should be finished by tomorrow afternoon. Jerry leaves Tuesday for owners' meetings. Lamb could be at practice tomorrow. Jerry will meet with the media on Wednesday ahead of their return to Frisco practice.
So the Cowboys have been trying to get a bargain for the last 3 weeks.
Yes,
last
exactly.
3 months.
Yeah, they're exactly. They've been trying to, according to the way Jane sees it, like they've been at $32.5 million, hoping that he would just be like, you know what, okay, I'm too scared to hold out or do anything like that. But as the Cowboys have shown, you don't need to be scared if you're a star player.
I wonder if they would have waited another week, they would have got that thing at 32. I just wonder that. Because like I say,
because you just know he wasn't going to miss games.
No player wants to leave $1 million a game out there, and nobody does. I think, to me, at 32.5, that still puts him at second, right? Doesn't that put him above? I mean, it puts him as the second highest paid receiver in the league.
If it was at $32 million?
32.5.
32.5. I don't know. Now he'd be in the same area, I guess, as A.J. Brown and.
I think that with the numbers that it was, I think that would be pretty close to being the second highest paid receiver. What do we got there, Dawson? You got that pulled up?
The A.J. Brown's 32. Yeah, so 32.5 would have
put him above.
So it would have still been the second highest.
He would still been the second highest receiver.
So somewhere between Brown and Jefferson is what they were negotiating inside of a $3 million window, and CeeDee and his team got 65% of that difference. I would say that's a job well done by CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah. I mean, and the guaranteed money that he got. I mean, his guaranteed $100 million guaranteed. Sure. Jefferson was 110.
110.
That's where Jefferson really wins out here. But CeeDee Lamb, compared to every other receiver, is blowing them out of the water. I mean, there's $84 million guaranteed for A.J. Brown, $77 guaranteed for Amon-Ra St. Brown. And those are the two latest guys to get it done.
If you're a premium player in the NFL, the Cowboys will cave to you. They will. I think it's just a matter of what is their breaking point. And so far, we haven't seen it with.
Well, that's the problem they have now is, as I mentioned, talking to general managers around the league, agents that do
credibility is shot.
The word is patience. They're not trying to slam the Cowboys. They're like, just be patient. Just be patient here. You're going to find a way to ultimately get what you want out of this deal. So, it was no disrespect to the Cowboys. It's just the way that they operate. But everybody in the agent world and in the general manager's world says, just be patient. You'll find a way to get it done.
I don't think there's anything wrong with how the Cowboys are doing it because they haven't lost any players for big games. They're negotiating pretty tough, but I would say if they really want to, get some players to start taking deals early, you got to let them go. You can't eventually cave here, right? At 34, you got to say, okay, if it's not 32.5, then we're trading you.
Yeah.
Okay, and now we're going to find out who really wants to be here.
You have to set that precedent so that players coming up can be like, well, remember what they did to Lamb? Remember they just didn't give him what he wanted, and now look what happened.
Now it's, hey, remember what they've done for Zeke. Remember what they've done for Martin. Remember what they've done now for Lamb.
Dak, same thing.
Keep waiting.
Just keep waiting. Just be patient.
Does Lamb have enough time to be as good as what he was last year?
Sure he does. He absolutely does. Okay, he's the one guy that you're going to pay that you feel like the contract is going to be worth it. That's how I look at him. Yeah. Hey, the way that he plays, the way he takes care of himself.
He gets better every year.
Yeah, he is going to always work hard at his craft. He's going to feel a little pressure though too. He's going to feel, but you know what? Stephen Jones said it. Geez, throw him 200 passes. Let's see. That's if I'm going
did last year.
If I'm going to pay you, I'm going to throw 200 passes your way and let's see what happens. So I'm not one bit worried about CeeDee Lamb being ready to go.
Now he's only as good as your quarterback, right? So that's where it gets super interesting. It's like if you're paying CeeDee Lamb all that money, are you doing that so that Dak's going to walk out in free agency next year and you got Trey Lance throwing him the football?
Might as well trade CeeDee Lamb at that point.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. Like, as you start to really think about what you're doing here, because CeeDee Lamb, yes, he by himself is totally worth every dollar. But if Trey Lance is throwing him the football, what's the point?
It's very similar to what the Vikings are going through this year. I know no J.J. McCarthy and all that. It's going to be the same thing. I was just kind of talking to people, and they're around the league, and they're like, listen, the Cowboys in 2025 could be exactly what the Vikings are in 2024.
Yeah.
Like big-time receiver, quarterback in flux.
The great news about wide receiver is the window of being elite can go well into your 30s. Yeah. It's not like an edge who's 25 years old and you're like, man, by the time we get this championship window open, he might not be the same type of player, So I would feel good about that. But if I'm CeeDee Lamb, I'd be nervous about it. That would significantly cut into career production and chances of making the playoffs right in the middle of my prime. So that's obviously the next big story is what happens now with Dak.
Yeah, he got paid. So if it turns into I never sniff a championship, I got my money.
Got the bag.
I don't think he's going to say it that way, but it's a lot easier to be on a bad team if you're getting what you feel like you're worth.
Well,
it's just not ideal.
Or he's super competitive guy and he demands out because he wants to go somewhere where he can win in 2 or 3 years if everything looks obscure.
We hear that all the time, right?
But
Adams at the Raiders and stuff, and then they, oh no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. It's 4 years. To me, I don't see. I think CeeDee Lamb, whether it's 8 and 9 or
12-5. I think it's the same for him.
He was awesome last year, though.
He was, dude. Yeah. I wonder how many more of those kind of years can we get? Can we get better than last year in any way? I mean, what last year showed is even with other players not performing, they could still get him the ball and have 12 catches in a game, you know. And I've seen a lot of good receivers with Dak that couldn't break it when the team was trying to take him away. Last year, by midseason, it became obvious. Like, if you can slow down the Cowboys, you got them, and they couldn't take the ball out of CeeDee Lamb's hands in the majority of games.
Yeah,
of course, Green Bay and Buffalo.
You're going to be that way too because of the way the running game, probably the lack of.
Yeah,
it
was bad last year too.
It is going to be the CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson show.
But it takes a lot. Defenses have to commit a ton to stop him because of just how much they move him around and where he can just be so productive in the slot. Like he's such a hard player to stop.